Hello and welcome to Product Packaging and Profit, where we help product-based businesses turn packaging design into a competitive edge to attract customers, grow sales, and boost profits. I'm Kelly Kemple. After 20 years of designing packaging for national retailers, I founded Hidden Path Creative, a graphic design studio that supports entrepreneurs with branding and packaging to get their products seen and sold. I'm sharing the secrets that launched big brands so your products can stand out. Let's get started. This episode of Product Packaging and Profit is sponsored by the Packaging Printer List. If there is one question I've heard from almost every product entrepreneur I've talked to, it is, where can I get my packaging printed? No, really. If we were on the Family Feud, this would be the answer at the top of the board. The Packaging Printer List is a curated directory of over 45 packaging printers and suppliers across various product categories, packaging types, and locations. I've handpicked all of the entries so you can be sure you're starting with a vetted shortlist. To grab your copy of the Packaging Printer List, head on over to hiddenpathcreative.com/packaging printer list. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me again. Today, I want to chat a bit about the power of packaging. So here at Product Packaging and Profit, we are going to be talking about that intersection between product packaging and profit, how these three pieces of your business intersect, and really how packaging and branding can help support your product, tell your story, and lead to a more profitable business. But when it comes to packaging, I think that, a lot of times I meet with clients or I speak with other business owners, and there's questions around, when should I start my packaging? What can packaging do for me? And really, a lot of times, packaging gets thought of as kind of the end of a process. You've gone through all of the steps to create your product, to meet with suppliers and manufacturers, or to either figure out your handmade process to get your product made. And then right before you want to launch your product, the question is, okay, wait, I need packaging. Wait, how am I going to package this and get it out? That's not everybody, but I do find that a lot of times the packaging is kind of that last checkbox on the list before your product's going out the door. And packaging really, it can be more of a strategic element in your product. It can be more of a part of your product, something that's a bit more integrated with your product. And we'll talk a little bit about, there are some categories of product where the packaging is very integral to the product, where the packaging very much becomes a representation of the product, if not the product itself. So thinking about your packaging earlier on in the process, you don't need to think about it as early as when you're just coming up with the idea for the product, but I would say that you want to think about your packaging before you start your full production run on your product. And there's a few reasons for that, but ultimately you can leverage your packaging better. You can integrate it more with your product if you start your packaging early. But why do you want to think about your packaging like that? That's the first question. Why? Because what can it do for you? So that's what I really want to break down in this episode. And there are three key things that your packaging can do for you to help build your brand and support your product. So the first and foremost, and maybe even the most obvious, is connecting with customers. So you're making your product, you're selling your product. You want your packaging to tell your story and resonate with those people that you want to buy your product. Now, you have so many tools when you have packaging to connect with those customers and attract those customers. But ultimately, when you have an idea of who is going to buy your product and you outline an ideal customer profile, or maybe 2 ideal customer profiles, I wouldn't go more than 2, because, one of the things that's really important is having clarity around who you are speaking to, so you can speak really singularly to create that connection. So I say speak, and I'm using a lot of words, but your packaging is very visual, right? So let's say I'm gonna start with a skincare product, because skincare and beauty is definitely a category where the packaging becomes synonymous with the product. And part of that has to do with the fact that that product doesn't really exist outside of that packaging. That packaging makes that product tangible and gives it an identity. Yes, if you're using a moisturizer, a cream, a serum, yes, that exists outside of that packaging. But think about how people use it. You buy a new moisturizer, it's sitting on your counter in the packaging. You dispense it from the packaging to apply it to your body or to your face. But that product always exists in that packaging. So that packaging becomes synonymous with the product. So you want to make sure that that packaging is something that the customer is attracted to, that they feel like it represents them or represents something that they want to be, and that it fits in with their life, because it's going to sit on their counter. It's going to sit in their bathroom. So you definitely want to have that connection. So, when you come up with these ideal customer profiles, you're going to look at, okay, who is this person? Around how old are they? Where do they live? What is their family like? What are they interested in? But that's going to allow you to go a little bit deeper. What are their hobbies? What's their aesthetic like? Are they somebody that's drawn to more of the farmhouse decor? Or are they drawn to something that's a little more modern, contemporary? And then you can draw in some influences from the other things that they're seeing to infuse into the packaging. And it might be a color palette. It might be a design element. You're not going to go all the way into their interior design, but you can pull cues from those elements to connect with your ideal customer. So knowing the things that they're looking at in their everyday life, knowing, the podcasts that they're listening to and how they are speaking to their friends, so that the copy that you're using in your packaging feels like something your customer would say, or is a statement that your customer responds to. So, you've got all of these things. So you've got your design elements to use to connect with customers. You've got your color palette. You've got your copy and your messaging. You've got what features, because here's the thing. A lot of times we make these great products, and I can't tell you how many times I've met with product developers or clients, and I hear that this product can do these 10 different things. And that's wonderful. I love that a product is so versatile and so multifaceted, but it's hard to create a message that gives prominence to all 10 things that your product can do. However, if I pick one main thing your product can do and then support it with 3 features that ladder up to that same result, then I've got a really strong and powerful message. So if you know your customer and you know what they care about, let's go back to the skincare example. Let's say that you know that your customer is dealing with, let's say, sensitive skin. So you know that sensitive skin is really important to them. Then we're going to pull out the kind of like the, three things that are really important to somebody with sensitive skin that if we're talking about a moisturizer, we definitely want to make sure they know that it moisturizes, but we also want them to know that it is for their sensitive skin and that it's either not going to aggravate their skin or it's going to make their skin better in some way. So I'm going to pick those things that really support that story versus if I have the same product and there's a few other things that we didn't highlight immediately on the packaging. So we might pick out a few different things if the primary customer has a different concern. And so just definitely keep that in mind. Definitely, think about who you're talking to, because that connection point, that really making what your product does and how it works super clear to the person that is going to buy it is going to make all the difference. All right. So that was the first point on the power of packaging, connecting with the customer. The second thing that your packaging can do for your product is it can make your product stand out from the competition. And not just stand out from the competition, but compete with the competition. So again, this might seem obvious, but the product landscape is a little crowded in some areas, right? Again, I was just talking about skincare. The skincare market, there's lots of new entries into that market every day. And so when you put something new out into an existing category like that, you want a way for your product to set apart from everybody else that's in the category. And at the same time, you want your product to feel legitimate. You want your product to feel like it has the credentials, the quality, the effectiveness to be on the shelf or be on the screen next to brands that have already been out on the market for a while. So this, again, is where packaging can help. Packaging does make a product feel real. It does make a product feel legitimate. So a lot of times the better designed or the more cues from a category that a product picks up into its packaging, the more that product feels like it's been out for longer than it has already been, or that it feels effective. So a way to kind of talk about this, I'll continue to use my skincare example. When we look at kind of like those mid-price skincare items, I'm talking about your serums, your moisturizers. If you look at, like, say, your lower cost drugstore brands, you've gone into a Walgreens, a lot of those products, they're just in what we call their primary packaging. So they are just in a package that contains the formula, the cream, the serum, and that's it. Once you start to move up in price point, you go to an Ulta, you go to a Sephora, you start shopping those kind of next step up price points on Amazon. Those products are coming in a box. So that primary package, that primary tube, that bottle, it's going to come in an outer paper package. That outer paper package immediately signifies to the customer that that product is clean, new, and a little better because the brand has taken the step to protect the product in a paper package. And that's not something that if you asked a customer, they would immediately be able to tell you. It's a psychological trick. So anytime you're entering a new product category or you've got a new product and you're about to launch, you want to take a look at what is going on in that category. And if there are if you see something that is happening across the board, so mid-tier beauty, the products are coming in a paper box, or, in the particular category that I'm looking, everybody is using a similar color palette, or everybody is using a logo and then a larger product message or icons for their features. You want to look at those things and take note of them. That's what I do as a packaging designer when I'm doing a marketing audit for a client. I'm going to look and see, okay, what are some of the common things that are happening in this category? Because those common things are things that now customers are conditioned to expect when shopping this category of product. And so customers, when they see those things, it is familiar because they've been conditioned to see them. So let's say I'm looking at a product category and everybody's using icons for their features on their front of package. And I'm working on a package for a client. I'm going to suggest to that client that we include icons for their features because it will be familiar to the client or to the customer, to the shopper. But at the same time, I'm going to do it differently so that it really relates to the brand that I'm working on. And so that part can stand out. But at the same time, it's going to feel like a legitimate product to the shopper. They're going to see this new product. We're going to have designed it to stand out, but then there's going to be some elements that feel familiar so that they immediately have a sense of trust for this new product that is on the shelf or on the screen. So that is number 2 on the power of packaging. Packaging can help your product stand out while helping it to feel like the credible product that it is. Okay, number 3 on the power of packaging. Packaging can elevate the price of a product. Did you just do a double take there? Because this is one of those things that I find super interesting. You have so many options when you're designing packaging, from not just the visual design, not just the messaging, not just the colors, not just what graphics to choose, but as a designer, one of the reasons why packaging is so exciting is because you get to choose materials and finishes. Okay, wait, what do I mean by materials and finishes? So you've got paperboard packaging. A lot of us are familiar with paperboard packaging, but you've got all sorts of different papers. You can choose colored papers, you can choose recycled papers, you can choose metallic papers. And that's where things get fun. A lot of times clients will come to me and they'll have seen metallic papers or foils. It's particularly prevalent in product categories where there's a lot of different price points. And a lot of times when the product itself isn't visible or the benefit isn't visible. So beauty is a key category where you see that. But another one is golf balls. So when I worked at Dick's Sporting Goods, I did a lot of golf ball packaging. And it was so fun because you got to include foil materials, raised printing, indented printing, all sorts of different textures. And those are kind of the visual bells and whistles. These different materials, these different textures, these different finishing techniques. These are the bells and whistles that make a product feel luxurious and expensive. So if you're looking at a product category like beauty or golf balls where you can't see the product, and even if you could see the product, you can't visibly tell the difference between the product. An opening price point golf ball and a top flight golf ball that a box of 12 costs $50. When you put them side by side on your hand, they look about the same. They've got a different logo on them, but they've got the same amount of dimples. And yes, there's something inside of them that might be different, but you can't really tell that. So the packaging tells that story. And so by adding in the more expensive paper, the more expensive foil finishing, those cues tell customers that your product is worth a higher price. They see the detail that has been put into that packaging. And so, again, it's a psychological cue. Somebody's not necessarily going to look at your product and say, well, it's worth an extra $10 because there's a foil stamp on the front. But they might still pay an extra $10 and not realize that it's because you've positioned your product to be more luxurious, to be better, to be elevated than the product next to it, because you are showing that through the packaging. Beauty is definitely one of those places where it's another big elevation through packaging. So again, we go back to this drugstore versus Ulta or Sephora example. And, when you go into Walgreens to shop for a face moisturizer, you're not going to see a whole lot of specialty paper. You're not going to see a whole lot of these foil and shine bells and whistles on the tubes or on the paper packaging. You might see a little bit of it, and typically you would see that at the products that are at a little higher on that price range. But when you walk into an Ulta and Sephora, you can definitely see that. And now these things change with the trends, right? The materials that show that elevated price point, they are going to change with trends. So there are some products right now, more in the beauty space, where there's a little more color in those elevated price points, but they're also using like a very luxurious matte soft touch finish. And you may not know what it's called, but as soon as it looks like a beautiful soft velvet. Like you want to reach out and touch it just to see how soft it feels. And I mean, yeah, once you've touched it and you go, okay, this feels great. I wonder how the product is. So it's drawing you in. And then because it is special and because the finish and the quality of the packaging is something that you haven't seen before, it can signify to you that product is worth you pulling out your debit card for. So packaging definitely has the ability to cue to customers that your product is worth every penny that you're asking for. And, it's so interesting to see that. And, on the flip side of that, that's why stores are a great example of this. Go into a store and maybe look at a product that hasn't sold through as well. Take a look at some of the boxes. If the boxes are looking a little dinged up, customers tend to pick up the products off the shelf that have the nicer, cleaner, newer looking packaging, because again, it psychologically signals to the customer that product is new, it's clean, and it hasn't been used. And we all, when we're shopping, we all want to feel like we are the first person purchasing the item. We don't want to feel like we are purchasing something that somebody returned, or something that was used, or something that fell off the truck. So having packaging that always looks clean, where you've invested in a material that's going to resist denting and nicks, and maybe has a special finish, whether it's your foil or a nice spot gloss or that beautiful soft touch look and feel. Those things will all support your customers spending more on your products. All right, so let's recap. There are 3 really powerful things that packaging can do for your product and for your brand. Number 1, packaging can connect with your customers. It can help create that personal relationship, that personal connection to your brand, to your product, that is the thing that will get the customer to purchase and get them to come back. Number 2, product packaging will position your product as a credible item and set it apart from existing competition. Infusing cues that are familiar to shoppers of the same category so that they feel familiar with your product will make your product feel credible, while doing it in your own way is what will set you apart from the competition. And number 3, packaging can help elevate your price. Spending a little extra where it matters in the material, in the finishes, or in the design can help signify to customers that your product is worth more and that they should pull out their debit card and buy. This is why I'm so passionate about packaging design, because I know that packaging design can do all 3 of these things for your products and so much more. And at the same time, customers will never tell you these things because they don't always even know. Shopping is such an emotional thing, and we all make a lot of these decisions subconsciously and in the moment. So we don't always necessarily remember or think that the packaging was that big of an influence, when really it has the ability to really do all these things. It can really get your product sold. All right, so that is a wrap on the power of packaging. Thank you for listening to Product Packaging and Profit, a podcast for product entrepreneurs looking to level up with packaging. We hope you'll join us next time to hear more about how packaging can help propel profitable product businesses. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us wherever you're listening, and be sure to come back in 2 weeks for our next episode. Until then, this is Kelly Kemple of Hidden Path Creative, and don't forget, what's on the outside matters too.